And we are now going to invite up our next Ignite session. So there's going to be a number of Ignite sessions that are going on throughout the day. These are just short talks to get us ramped up for the next session. We invited people from all over the state to apply, essentially, to share their story. So these are folks that maybe it's their first time sharing their story in front of a large audience. And so our next guest is coming over 200 miles away from Moffat County. It was really important we highlighted rural voices in this. And we're going to just ask everyone, especially for our next speaker, we just want to make sure we give some attention to him. And then I promise you we'll have a break. So we want to bring up our next speaker, Kevin Kohlbrenner from Moffat County, coming 200 miles away. Thank you for coming and sharing your story. This is one of his first time sharing to this large of an audience. So please encourage him, Kevin Kohlbrenner.
Holy shit, there's a lot of you. Whew. All right, when I was 25 years old, I found myself homeless in Florida. I had just gotten out of treatment about 2 months before and just couldn't stay sober, wound up losing my housing. I was living in a sand dune and showering at the beach. And it was just a really dark and hopeless time in my life. And I was walking through a parking lot one day when a black Cadillac pulls up and the windows roll down, and it was my counselor, this guy Roderick from the treatment center I'd just been at. And he was like, "Man, you look like shit." And yep, and he was like, "Do you want some help?" And so I got in his car, and he got me back into treatment. But he said something that changed my life forever that I'll never forget. And he said, "Man, Kev, if you could get your shit together, I think you'd be a great social worker someday." 10 years before that, I was 15 years old. I grew up in Philadelphia, and it was my sophomore year in high school. I was waking up for school. I heard my dog barking downstairs, so I go to let him out. I'm like halfway down my steps when a flash grenade comes through my window, and I get completely disoriented. Before I know it, I'm on the ground with a cop's boot on my neck and guns drawn on me, telling me not to move. They weren't there for me. They were there for my stepdad. When I was growing up, my stepdad was a drug dealer. My mom's an addict. And so, I used drugs with my parents. I sold drugs for my stepdad. All that kind of stuff was very normalized in my life growing up. So they were raiding the house for my stepdad. They found a bunch of drugs, a bunch of guns, and my stepdad wound up going to prison for 5 years on a 7-year sentence. And that event, I didn't know anything about PTSD or anything like that at the time, but the 6 months after the raid happened, I really just kind of spiraled out of control. I was already using as my main coping skill for everything in life, and so it just got worse and worse. And 6 months later, it was Christmas Eve of 2006. I was skateboarding to my aunt's Christmas party, and I got hit by a car. It was a hit and run. They never found the guy that hit me. And I spent 3 months in the hospital getting my left foot reconstructed. And that introduced me to opiate pain medications. Now, I want to make it clear, I believe that I was an addict or a person with substance use disorder before I got hit by the car. But getting hit by the car did me no favors. And I had problematic use with the pain medications in the hospital right away. I was like saving up all the buttons for the morphine drip, and I had, the doctors were, they were giving me Percocets and Oxys. My family was also smuggling me in more Percocets and more Oxys. So it was a problem right away. After a bunch of surgeries, in like 3 months, I get released, and they just give me basically whatever I want with as many refills as I want for the next several years. So that just progressed and progressed till eventually I started doing heroin, which led to fentanyl. And by the time I was 25, I couldn't keep a job. I couldn't keep an apartment. I definitely couldn't keep a girlfriend. And I was an IV heroin and fentanyl user. in North Philly. And so it was just a super dark and hopeless time in my life. I've had several of those, and I wound up going to treatment, which is where I met Roderick initially in Florida. And what I really admired about Roderick was that he had lived experience, you know, like he didn't just study about addicts in a book. He and I had a lot of like similarities in our stories. He was also like a badass, you know. He had a social work degree. He helped people involved in the justice system. He worked with at-risk youth, and then he came into the treatment center and did some of our groups. And he was also just really genuine, you know. Like I could tell that he really did care, and I could feel that he cared about me, you know. And so when I relapsed after treatment and was homeless, and he found me in that parking lot. I don't know, it just meant a lot, you know, that he saw me and stopped and offered me some more help. And, you know, after I went to treatment that second time down there, something just kind of shifted, and I started taking my recovery a lot more seriously. I started going to meetings, you know, working the 12 steps, like things just got, my life just started getting better and better. My sobriety date is July 14th, 2019. Thank you. I moved to Colorado, and the community college was offering free tuition for Moffat County residents. And when they asked me what I wanted to go to school for, what he said just really like rang in my head. And I was like, maybe I could go to school to be a social worker, you know? And I'm so grateful that I did. You know, like in the last 6 years, my life has changed so dramatically. And my life is really something I never thought was possible for me. This past May, I got my master's degree in social work. Hell yeah. I've gotten to work as a child welfare caseworker, and for the last 4 years, I've been at the Health Partnership, where I've developed the judicial program, helping people transition out of jail and connect to recovery resources. I've become a dad in recovery. Yeah, hell yeah. My daughter just turned 4. My son is going to be 1 in a couple days. Yeah. And I just want to kind of end with this, is that, you know, I work with a lot of people, and I don't always get to see the people that I work with's lives transform before my eyes, you know? Just like, you know, Roderick didn't get to see my life transform before his eyes. But I try to remind myself that I have an opportunity to be the Roderick in other people's stories. We all do, you know? And it's the little things that we say or the ways that we treat people that can really make the biggest difference. I know that I would have never thought that I was capable of becoming a social worker or going to college or being a dad or being a homeowner or any of this kind of shit if he didn't think it was possible for me and tell me, you know? And so I'm just so grateful to have the opportunity to share my story with all of you, and hopefully inspire you guys to be the Roderick in someone else's story too. My name is Kevin Kohlbrenner, and I am a great social worker. Thanks.